for youth development and youth development programs across the 39 counties and 29 tribes of Washington State. And luckily tonight, my days are completely wrong. Luckily today, we have a lovely guest speaker and board member of Mentor Washington, my friend James Donaldson. Say what's up to James Donaldson. Hello.
Hey. Hello, everyone.
Now, there's so much I could talk about James Donaldson, from his storied career in the NBA to his Gift of Life Foundation to the work he's doing, and will be doing in the future. But let's start with something simple. You're on our board. You've been on our board, I think, since the beginning.
Yes.
What compelled you about joining the Mentor Washington board and mentoring in general?
Well, thanks so much, James, for the introduction. Lovely is not usually an adjective that's used to describe me. I'll take it. Hey, I've been with Mentor Washington since the inception. It was Washington State Mentoring Partnership way back then. And I was one of the initial board members, rounded up by our dear friend, Jim, don't tell
Jim
me.
Marsh.
Jim Marsh. Oh, how can I forget? Jim Marsh, unfortunately, passed away a few years ago. But Jim rounded up several of us to be the initial board members. And I have really enjoyed my time with the board, with the organization. I got involved because I know mentoring works, and I know that our youth are starved for good mentors, positive role models, especially positive male role models in their lives, positive male role models of color, even more so. And these things all struck a chord with me and said, hey, this is right up my alley. This is the work I do anyway. I love working with youth programs, education programs, sports programs. They all kind of merge together with our youth. And mentoring is one of those things that's just a great thing to get involved with. I've been a mentor myself personally several times over the years. And I've enjoyed those experiences, and I continue, I think, just through my example of leading my life the way I lead my life, of being a positive male role model for so many youth out there.
Thank you. So let's start at the beginning. As I mentioned earlier, you played in the NBA. Was it 12 years with the Sonics?
No, 3 years with the Sonics, 14 years overall.
14 years overall. Wow. What was that like? What was your experience? Of course, my background is in the entertainment industry, so I can go on and on about Hollywood and Broadway. But what is it like to be a professional athlete?
Well, for me, it was just one of the many things I've done in my life. It never was who I was. So I think that's a defining point for a lot of people to pick up on. I've done a lot of things in my life, and it was really my platform to a lot of other great things that I've done in my life, even when I was a professional athlete, and afterwards, even more importantly. I actually played 20 years professional basketball, 14 years here in the States with the NBA, another 6 years overseas in Europe, in Spain, Italy, and Greece. And that just gave me a whole, wide open, worldly, international approach to life, and to realizing that we are all in this together, no matter what culture you come from, what language you speak. We're all human beings. We all need each other. And the needs are essentially the same cross culture, cross country, cross everything, that we need to help, especially our youth, just prepare them for the long life journey ahead of them. And they'll be that much better off for it.
Are there any lessons you learned in the NBA or playing overseas that apply to mentoring?
Oh, yeah. I think, playing sports, for one thing anyway, is all about teamwork and camaraderie, and being there for your teammates, working towards a common defined goal and objective. It's not always about winning. You're not always going to win. There's going to be some days you just have a bad day, or it just doesn't go your way. But sports teaches you how to handle that, how to handle the ups of life, how to handle the downs of life. 82 games in an NBA season, no team's ever gone 82-0, so, and even
Right.
my best team, we might have won 60 games, which meant we lost 22 times. So, those losses, you just take a lesson from and come back the next day more determined, more focused. And that's what sports has really taught me about life. I think that's what I try to instill into our young people, that, life isn't always going to be hunky-dory and every day a great day. But they don't know that when they're teenagers. They think that life is going to be a breeze for them. And when they first start encountering those challenges, that's when a lot of them really, really need our help.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned challenges, because as a teen myself, I thought I was going to be a professional soccer player. And I was like, oh, this is easy. I'll smooth by and I'll play overseas like you did. And then one injury, I broke my foot and derailed my entire soccer career. And you have a book out, which is right here. So make sure you copy it, Celebrating Your Gift of Life.
Thank you.
What is this book? Why? Well, fun. First, it's your second book. Why'd you write it? And then tell us some story behind it, please.
Well, let me touch on our teen experience again.
Yeah.
Right now there are 100,000, if not more, student athletes around the country who had their whole year of athletic competition wiped out last year, 2020, due to COVID. A lot of these kids were hoping to go on to a college athletic opportunity or to a professional athletic opportunity. And now they missed all of that. That window is closed on them, unless they were a superstar that everybody knew about. Now they're just going to be forgotten about and passed over for the next incoming class. This is really causing a serious amount of distress among our young student athletes. This is the work that I do now, trying to help them and mentor them and help them figure out a backup plan now that athletics is probably out of the picture. What are your other interests? Help them define them, help them identify them, help them get excited about them as they were as excited about athletics. And so right now, this is the big, secondary, tertiary pandemic going on in our country. I guess the secondary one is mental health, which is one of the reasons I wrote my book, Celebrating Your Gift of Life. And my book is all about showing that mental health challenges can happen to anybody at any time along any point of your life's journey. And I never knew much about all the challenges that were involved with it and why people couldn't just shake it off and go at it again the next day like I did in sports forever.
Right.
Yeah, it doesn't work that way. And so, 2015 is really when my world started falling apart and a downward spiral into depression and anxiety and suicidal ideations. I mean, actually planning my exit from this world.
Right.
And tough thing to talk about, but I do talk about it. I cry about it. I share my story because I want everybody to know that, these suicidal thoughts are temporary, but suicide itself is permanent. It's over. So it's okay to have the thoughts, but do something about it and get yourself some help. My story started in 2015. Here I am, still very, very fit as an athlete, in the gym every day, running 3 or 4 miles a day, 3 or 4 times a week, downtown Seattle. And I did that for 20 years. I mean, I did it all after my basketball career.
Right.
And, one day out of nowhere, I started feeling really, really terrible with my back and nausea and sweating profusely, trying to play around the golf with some friends of mine. And I decided, wow, guys, I don't feel good today. So I decided at that point, not even to play the round of golf, but to go to see my doctor instead and see exactly what's going on with me. I remember making it to his office and vaguely seeing the reception counter before everything just went pitch black.
Wow.
And the docs tell me I just fell out right there in the lobby of the reception area. They did a quick diagnostic scan on me and determined it was my heart that was really having a big problem. I was suffering from an aortic dissection. which is if your aorta ruptures, it's over. I mean, you get about a half a dozen heartbeats and then you just bleed out and there's nothing anyone can do. I had an aortic dissection, which means the tissue and the membranes were just barely hanging on to keep the blood inside the vessel, but they were thin as can be and can be ruptured at any point. And so the doctors determined that was the case. They rushed me off to Cherry Hill Hospital here in Seattle, a Swedish hospital, and emergency on the spot open heart surgery for 12 hours. I woke up 2 weeks. Yeah. And I don't remember all this because I was totally out. But I woke up 2 weeks later. The doctors had put me into a 5-day medically induced coma to lower my blood temperature so my brain wouldn't swell and all the complications that would come with that, strokes and everything else. I woke up 2 weeks later, had no idea what had happened, and I stayed in intensive care for 2.5 months. That was the beginning of 2015. Now here I was, a top flight athlete all my life, can do just about anything physically imaginable. One of the biggest, strongest guys in the weight room, out there running, a big guy like me running the way I used to run. And all these things started playing havoc on me. 2016, I had another surgery on the aorta. The first one was the ascending aorta, the upper one. The second one was the descending aorta, the lower one. And that laid me up again for 2 or 3 months in the hospital. But 2016 is where a lot of things started unwinding in my life. My mother passed away. My wife walked out on her marriage and took her son with her, my stepson, for 5 years. And my business, a long-running physical therapy business for 28 years called the Donaldson Clinic, physical therapy, sports rehab. And it started going sideways and financially getting challenged. I poured all of my NBA life savings into my business, trying to save it, and ran my savings down to zero. And eventually, my business finally just went out of business. I couldn't keep it going. I had no more money left. And so those big life stressors, medical surgeries. I ended up having 4 major surgeries in 5 years. Medical surgeries, financial problems, death in the family with my mother passing, a divorce with my wife, and missing my stepsons terribly. I was coming home to a big old empty house all by myself throughout the rest of 2016, 2017. I was still functioning okay. We learned to put on a happy face and go about our business, and nobody really knows the difference. So I was functioning okay, but at nighttime, those walls at the house started closing in on me every single night. My mind is racing 100 miles an hour, trying to get some sleep. I'd wake up every night at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, couldn't get back to sleep. My mind is having 2 thoughts. One, how to get some more financial resources to save my business, and 2, how to exit this world. And, I made my plans on how I was going to exit. And I knew then at that point, when I started making plans to get out of this world, that something was indeed terribly, terribly wrong with me. I've always been somebody who's been very much in touch with me and my emotions, my feelings, and my overall being. So I knew something was wrong. And I called my medical doctor, my family physician, and made an appointment to go see him. I thought he's just going to give me a simple sleeping pill or something to get through the night, and that'd be it. But, luckily for me, he was a very compassionate doctor, very intuitive, very much willing to take the time to listen. I told him my story, just like I'm sharing my story with you. And he said, "Wow, James, you are suffering from anxiety and depression and suicidal ideations. We got to get you some help right now." And this was probably one of the toughest weeks of my 12-month dark journey when I went to go see my doctor, because I had thoughts even that day of going home and ending my life that evening. And so the doc stepped in. He prescribed some prescription medication. He got me some behavioral health counselors that I can go talk to. I made it through that day, the rest of the few days after that, and brought together a small, intimate group of friends around me, people who had known me for 30, 40 years. They knew me when I was riding high and everything was just going great. Now they saw me down in the depths of all of this. And I asked them all, I said, hey, I'm all by myself and I need somebody to call sometime at 1 or 2 in the morning. Can I call you guys? And they all put their hand up and said, yes, put us on speed dial. Call us at 2 or 3 in the morning, no problem. And that was great. And I did that a couple of occasions. And then I asked them all also to check in on me 2 or 3 times a week if they would, to see how my mental state was, to see what was really burdening me down that particular day, to see what I was thinking and how I was feeling about things overall. And they did that. And that went on for 6 or 8 months or so. And so 2018 was a year of 12 months of near total darkness. I had no hope. I had no thoughts of I would ever get through this. And I think because of the steps I took, reaching out for medical help, first of all, taking the prescription medication, even though I don't really, not really fond of taking a lot of medications and things, but the doctor suggested it. Seeing my behavioral health counselor and just pouring out my heart, pouring out everything with them. And then my small group of friends who I respected very much, they all respected and loved me. And that's what helped me get through. I didn't have any, substance abuses or anything. I've never had a problem with any of that. Never drank alcohol, never smoked, never did drugs, lived a very clean lifestyle. So I didn't have those other vices to deal with. This was plenty on my plate.
Yeah.
And I feel for anybody who does have those other vices, because you got to deal with those also, because those are just going to hamper your recovery, your getting back to your full healthy being again. You have to take care of those issues as well. And so that's what helped me get through all of this. And that's what my book is about. It details all of this in great detail, but also offers a lot of helpful hints and tips to anybody going through this kind of thing, that they can ask themselves at the end of every chapter some introspective, reflective questions about how they're feeling about things. What's their triggers? What's making them angry? Why do they want to give up on life? Encouraging them not to give up on life. So I really feel this book is going to help, many people out there around the country and around the world even. And that's my whole chapter of life right now, is to be that voice and that advocate for mental health awareness and suicide prevention.
Thank you, James. Thank you for sharing that with us. That means a lot. So glad that you had a support system in place. That's often something many people, adult and youth, don't have. And so to have that is so key. And I'm just appreciative of you. And then, just where we are now and are working together. I'm thinking of, when you talk about mental wellness and suicide, if we talk about the Black community and how that's often looked down upon. I remember when Michael B. Jordan, who's playing Killmonger in Black Panther, after portraying that role, went to therapy, and Twitter threw him down. They're like, how could you go to therapy? You're a strong actor. Look how built you are. Look how strong you are, right? What do you say? What can we do to empower not just the Black community, but each other around mental wellness?
Absolutely. And don't forget, even Dak Prescott, the quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys.
Yes.
Got a lot of ridicule for exposing that he had a depression. He lost his brother early on in the COVID shutdowns and the stages that we went through last year. That caused him to go into some depression. Sports writers are making fun of him. Here he is, supposed to be the quarterback of America's team, He's supposed to be a big, tough, rough guy and not supposed to have these kind of feelings. And that is so detrimental to the work that we're trying to do. In our Black community, we have issues, and communities of color in general, but Black communities especially, because we have viewed mental health issues as something of taboo and stigmatized. We all grow up with that cutting remark once in a while of "you crazy, you crazy."
Oh man, yes.
You know,
Oh man, yeah, you crazy. Yes.
that's right. And
Yeah.
when you do start having mental challenges, you remember those voices telling you "you crazy" when you were young, and you don't dare tell anybody now you're having some mental issues. You got to go get some help. So you suffer in silence, and that stigma carries on with us. And so we need to do a better job. And this is why I'm doing the work I'm doing. Here I am, larger than life, taller than life, African-American man, talking and crying and sharing my story so that other African-American men would feel comfortable sharing what they go through. We need that. Men tend to suffer in silence. Women tend to have more of an emotional set of friends and network that they can cry on each other's shoulders. They can talk about these kind of things. But men, we hit the bar scene, we hit the nightclubs, the strip clubs, the gambling circuit. We do drugs, we do alcohol, we do anything to temporarily forget that pain. But that pain is just temporarily blocked over. It's still there. And so this is why I'm trying to get men to say, hey, I have a problem. I'm going to let my loved ones know I got a problem, and I'm going to go get some help with my support group around me. And that's what's going to help all of us get through this. So I want us to realize that, there's no shame in this game, as they say. We've relied on our church and our pastors and our ministers and the Black community forever. And that's good. It's nice to have a prayer group working with you and praying for you, but you have to have real practical tactics to get through this kind of thing. You can't do it alone, and you shouldn't do it alone.
No, yes, agreed. You reminded me, I just had a conversation with my brother this week, and we grew up in Chicago, and just talking, we haven't seen each other in person because he's in LA and I'm here, just talking about why we both left Chicago, unearthed so much trauma we experienced with violence, just violence every day, seeing people die when we were young, seeing people fight, having friends get shot and murdered. And he immediately went to therapy. He's almost 40. I'm well over 40, and it turned a light on my head that you are just buttressing that there's such a need for us to talk about these things, and they're often, as you said, tossed to the side. Oh, toughen up, be a man, right? And that's not the way to move forward as a community.
That's right. Even African American men I hang out with now, I belong to several African American groups in Seattle.
Yes.
They're not quite sure what to do. And I share they look at me, they kind of back up a little bit. They're not sure what to do. And because I know for a fact, all of them are hidden hidden feelings. I was a board member for the NBA Retired Players Association for about eight years. We have 800 members in our association. And I'd say 70, 80% of them, African-American guys, 90% African-American, 70, 80% of them have some serious issues they will not talk about. They're going to take it to their grave. And it degrades our quality of life that we're trying to have while we're still here, not to be able to work on these things, not to be able to share these things. I feel so much freer now that I can talk about what I went through. I'm not hiding a secret and carrying it around, hoping nobody will find out. I went through the whole gamut of bankruptcy and foreclosure and near eviction, living on a limited fixed income from now on. I lost all my life savings. I lost my business. I lost my wife. I lost my mother. I lost my business. I lost my identity. I lost my hope. But yet I was able to finally get back on solid ground. And now here I am, totally back together again. And I don't mind a little bit of emotion that comes out of me. You know, it
Yeah.
just, it's a reminder of how real it was not that long ago.
No, I appreciate that, and your candor and your openness. Um, you know, there's as you referenced, COVID has really upended the lives of many people, particularly young people. What would you say to a young person who says, "Oh, well, you played for the NBA. You can do these things.
Mhm.
I can't do this." How, what words of advice can you provide to that young person for others to take in and pass along to their community of mentees?
Well, this is what mentoring is all about, helping our young people identify their strengths, their interests, their passions, and then helping them to cultivate that and do something with that. Because kids don't really know. I mean, we all grew up. I know when I was a kid, I'm 63 years old now, and when I was a kid, I ride my bicycle around the neighborhood with my childhood friends and sitting on the bank of a levee or a riverbed and staring up at the big fluffy clouds and dreaming about what we're going to be one day. All those kind of kids don't do that anymore. They're all so attached. Well, I pick up my iPhone, but I'm using it. Yeah, they're also attached to all this. But that iPhone is not going to help you at 2 a.m. when you need somebody to talk to. And so we need to restore our personal relationships with each other and just really have that best friend, have those best friends, that support network, especially men. I think kids are going through a childhood now devoid of real close friends. It's based on how many thumbs ups and how many likes they get on Facebook or Instagram and all the rest of those things. But that's not a real life. That's not a real friendship. And so that's what mentoring can do. A good mentor will work with that child and really see the potential within. That's how my whole basketball life started. I wasn't a basketball player in grade school or middle school. I didn't play till my last year in high school. And it took a high school basketball coach to realize the potential that was hidden within me. I didn't see it. I couldn't see it, but he saw it. And he said, "Hey, James, let's try to start working a little bit with the game of basketball, get you familiar with it, get you to like it, see how good you can be at it." And that's how my whole basketball world began. But before then, I had no idea. I had no interest in basketball, no interest in sports. I was a good student, and that was good. Going to school every day with my friends, coming back every day, doing what kids do after school, watching TV, a couple bowls of cereal, and I'm good. But this is a different childhood now. These kids are experiencing, and so there's need to really be in tune with all of that.
Yeah. Is that what compelled you to start the Gift of Life Foundation?
Yes, the Gift of Life Foundation started up when that 12 month of darkness started lifting a little bit. Probably 10, 11 months into it, I'm still a very religious guy. I go to church every Sunday. Well, COVID permitting. I'm not.
Of course. Yeah.
I'm not a Zoom service guy, but God has been with me. God saw me through, and I believe that to be true. Even the deepest, darkest days when nobody else seemed to be around, God was there with me. I know it. Holding my hand, because if I tried to hold his, I know I would have let go a long, long time ago. And so, that really helped me out and gave me a reason. And towards the end of those 12 months, the darkness started lifting up a little bit. And I realized then that I have a purpose. I'm making it through this And I had lost my purpose to live. I'd lost my reason to live, but now I've discovered a new purpose. And that was to utilize this platform I have as a former professional athlete, as a long-standing community member, as a business owner, successful entrepreneur, all those things I had worked so hard for. Now I got a platform that I can speak from and people will listen. If nothing else, that I was a professional NBA player. People like that, but they also see me. They see, wow, big old tough, strong James, African American man. He looks like me. He's been through what I've been through, and he's telling his story. So that's why the Gift of Life Foundation started, to give me a platform that I can be a conduit. And a lot of people contact me through the website, sharing their stories about what they've gone through, or applauding me, and I don't need any applause, but applauding me for my efforts of hanging in there and still being here. And so it gives me a platform to speak to our young people, especially. I was doing a lot of speaking engagements before COVID shut us all down. I'd be in front of an assembly of middle school or high school kids, maybe 400 or 500 kids at a time. Invariably, at the end of every one of those presentations, there'd be 4 or 5 kids who would come down to me, 12-year-old, 13, 14, 15-year-olds, pull me aside one by one and tell me that they're suicidal right now. And they don't know how they're going to make it through the night. That's tough to hear from a 13-year-old who is at life's end and doesn't have life's experiences of the ups and downs of life. They don't know. They're going down and they don't see up as a possibility. They want to end their life. We lose 2 school-age children in the state of Washington every single day, 365 days a year. 8 to 18-year-olds, we lose 2 a day to suicide. And then this COVID shutdown, it's probably twice that or 3 times that, I am sure. But we don't hear about it unless they're a highly visible, renowned sport athlete or something like that. We don't hear about it. But these kids are really, really hurting and they need help. I want to do what I can to make sure that mental health resources are available for everybody, not just a suicide prevention hotline, but actual people they can talk to. I put myself out there. I say, hey, people, if nothing else, call me, contact me through my website. I'll talk with you. I'll email you. I'll talk to you on the phone, whatever you want to do, whatever you need, because I've been through it and I know.
Thank you. What you're saying rings so deep into my soul. Just having someone to call. When I was teaching in New York, I had a student, and just like you said, hey, just call me anytime. And she called me Christmas Day, and she was pregnant. And I said, oh, hey, happy Christmas. How's the newborn? And she said, oh, the baby died. And I said, oh. She said, can you just listen to me? And I said, sure. So I sat now bathing my own children. Yeah. And I listened to her just breathe, basically. And we checked in every day. She'd call. She didn't have to share anything. She didn't want me to talk. She just wanted me to listen.
Right.
Fast forward a year later, she graduated from high school. Now it's working in fashion design. But she had someone to lean on. And the importance of that, it grows. It grows. Yeah.
Right, that's right. And you hit on an important point. I mean, I think one of the most valuable things we can lend to a person who's going through mental distress is to be a listening ear, but a listening, non-judgmental ear.
Right.
They already know. That's why they're hiding in silence, because they feel they'll be judged. And so to be as non-judgmental as possible, to not keep on injecting advice and this is what you should do, this is what you could do, just listen. And they will eventually come around and grow that confidence in you as a listening partner for them. And finally, things will start coming back together again. But if you if you judge them, it's like poking a snail. They go right back into their shell, and then they got to work their way to start poking out again to see if it's safe. It's a tough place to be.
Right. And that's such a great metaphor, because like a snail, it takes a while to come back out of that shell.
That's right.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
you're talking about youth, you're talking about mental wellness. I have to ask, you have a listening group of people. Is that why you're running for mayor? Like,
Ah,
we gotta celebrate that, Brother Donaldson. Yeah.
thank
Tell
you.
us about that. What's compelling you to run for mayor?
Well, now that I am back on solid ground again, I mean, I have not had a bad day. And, since 2018, the end of it, when I came out of this darkness, uh, I've been able to get back on my feet again, at least a purposeful wise. I didn't have a purpose. Now I've got a purpose of Your Gift of Life Foundation, but also looking around and seeing so many people in need, so many people that really are hurting from this pandemic shutdown. Watching our city, in the city of Seattle where I live, continue on its downward slide through our non-responsive elected officials the last several years. I've been here for 40 years. I got here in 1980 as a Seattle Supersonic and played my first NBA years here, and Seattle became home. I ran for mayor back in 2009 as a first timer and came in fourth place behind our incumbent mayor, Greg Nichols, at the time. But ever since then, Seattle has been on a continued downward slide. The quality of life is suffering. Public safety is at risk. The disparaging remarks towards each other. Now the hate against Asian Americans around the country and in Seattle. We've got a large Asian population here in Seattle. Our businesses are fleeing the city and running over to the east side, to Bellevue and elsewhere. Downtown needs to be revitalized. So all of these things I'm working on, I've always worked on and had an interest in. But running for mayor is one way that I can sure enough be around that decision-making, policy-making table. I'm going to make sure that mental health and mentoring is part of our overall rebounding back to the great status that we used to have as a city in Seattle. Seattle, not that long ago, I'm not sure how long you've been here, Gene, but not that long ago, was referred to as the crown jewel of the Pacific Northwest. I mean,
Right.
you can't state it any better than that. Better than Portland, better than Tacoma, better than Spokane, better than Everett, better than Vancouver, BC. Yeah, I said it because we were better than them.
Right.
And they knew it. They knew it.
Mm-hmm.
But we are the laughing stock of the country this past summer due to our so-called, summer of love, where we basically turned over 10 city blocks on Capitol Hill to rioters and looters and anarchists, destroying public safety, destroying public and private properties, putting the residents' lives at risk, their safety at risk. Our mayor and our city council were totally non-responsive. I was up here at Chop and Chaz 2 or 3 times a week all summer long, calling out for the mayor to do something, get your head out of the sand and make a decision, issue a public statement, reassure us that everything is going to be okay. She wouldn't do it. And so that's what really got me thinking, wow, it's time for me to jump back into this mix. It also gave me another reason, another purpose of life. And so now I have 2, my mental health work and my willingness and wantingness to be a public servant, to serve our people of Seattle and provide that great leadership. So that's why I'm running for mayor.
I love that. I love that. Before I turn it over to the participants for a Q&A, just one final question. You're talking about action. What are some action steps we can take today, tomorrow, next week, next month, to promote that well-being? Not just, I want to say structural well-being. So in systems and in human beings. What can we do?
Well, you know, we have to roll up our sleeves and do the dirty grunt work that doesn't get the headlines, doesn't get all the publicity, the notoriety. If I have any issue about our board with Mentor Washington over the 15 years I've been on it, is that we've had very few active board members who are willing to roll up their sleeves, become an actual mentor, you know, travel around to especially our urban settings up and down the western part of the state, Everett, Seattle, Tacoma, you know, Olympia. We've got a lot of kids in these urban settings that are really disadvantaged and don't get nearly the services that they need. I rolled up my sleeves and I became a mentor. I belong to a mentoring group right here in the central area of Seattle with one of our former board members, Hazel Cameron, who was a great board member. You should talk about getting her back on the board. She has a mentoring agency, and we mentor these kids that were in the juvenile justice system. You know, these kids need help. There's no way that a 15-year-old should be sitting in juvie hall for the next 4 or 5 years until he becomes an adult. They need help. And that's the kind of guy I am. I mean, I'm playing in the NBA. You know, we had our cute little guards out there on the perimeter dancing around and shooting up threes. But the hard work was on the inside, you know, grabbing rebounds and getting position and blocking shots and keeping people from coming to the basket. It doesn't get the headlines, but you don't win without it. And so that was my job. I didn't need the headlines. I was happy to just participate and be a team member to help out my teammates. Public safety is the same way. You know, we need to restore trust into our police officers and our law enforcement folks. For some reason, we've lost trust. When I grew up, police officers were friends of the neighborhood. They knew us, and we kind of knew them by, you know, officer so-and-so. You don't get that anymore. Now they're being disparaged, they're being defunded, they're not being respected the way they need to be. And so we need to be sure that we can I say each and every one of us, don't just sit on the sideline. Get actively involved, not reactively, proactively involved, and do what we can do to make sure that we can improve the quality of life for all of our young people and for the cities that we live in.
Thank you, James Donaldson. I appreciate this conversation so much.
Thank you.
I'm happy to have you on our board, and I remember watching you on the boards when you're playing for the Sonics. Yeah. So I'm open up to the audience. Do we have any questions for James Donaldson?
I do. This is Tom Pinella. Hey, James, what's happening?
Hey, Tom.
We go back, way back, from the beginning and stuff like that. Thank you for sharing your story. That is, although I know you, I didn't know some of that stuff right there. So thank you for sharing. It is really resonates with me. I have a colleague of mine, a guy I used to coach with, both our daughters and stuff like that. 2 weeks ago, his kid committed suicide, was a freshman, 15 years old, down here in Southwest Washington and stuff like that. And so my question, I have a couple questions for you, and I think this is really centers around hope. And you talked about hope, you know, as folks young and old are depressed or going through a lot of the stuff that you're going through. One thing you can do control, and which is you can't control suicide. So, I mean, as funny as that sounds, that is in your control. Everything else is out of control, and you can control that piece right there. My question to you is what are some of the warning signs? What are some hopeful stuff? And you touched on a couple of that. And what should we be telling mentors and organizations? You're not caseworkers, you're not social workers, but there had to be, were there warning signs that they could do? And then that goes to the information, you know, to talk to someone and all that other stuff. So I'm just unpacking a lot of that. And then you talked about masculinity and you know, and I definitely get that, you know, on the point, you know, I was raised, you keep everything inside, you don't tell anybody any of your business,
Sure.
Just handle it. Don't defame the family name. That last name means something. So I get all that stuff. So I appreciate you sharing that. But what are some things, warning signs and hope And what would you say to mentors?
Well, you can tell if you're around young people enough, and young people, granted, are going to be somewhat moody, especially going through their teen years, up and down, here and there. But if you watch them consistently, you'll tell if a young child is kind of removing themselves from the day-to-day activities that they're normally involved with. They no longer want to go to sports. They no longer want to go to school. They might be bullied at school. They're not going to tell you about it, but they're definitely afraid of that bully at school. And so, again, being able to watch and observe and then to question, but question in a non-judgmental way. You don't ever want to say, I told you not to do that, but to say, how was your day at school? How was your walk to school, back and forth? Those kind of things. And young people will, when they feel comfortable enough, will start confiding in you. And it's amazing the way they do. They tell stories, they tell family secrets they're not supposed to tell, if they feel comfortable enough with you. But that's the role of a mentor. A good mentor will be able to work with their young person and just be able to be that confident for them that they so often lack in their lives. So those are some of the things you can really watch out for. I'm working. So I had a big story put out about a month ago on Como TV with Eric Johnson. And
we watched it.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Yeah, you can YouTube it on Eric Johnson's Heroes. I had a tremendous amount of follow-up after that from all the mental health agencies in town who really want me to help them with their efforts to work with communities of color. One of the groups out of Olympia is a group called QPR, and QPR stands for questioning, persuading, and then response. And they teach people to watch out for the signs of suicide and suicidal ideations. It's an exam. Matter of fact, we're going to do a little webinar next week sometime. I'll invite our board members to partake in that so we can really learn how to watch out for the signs of suicide.
Thank you, James. Like I said, I know it's prevalent in our state, and thank you for sharing. You listen to a little bit older, military suicide is on the rise. It's very much cuffed behind the gates of our installations. And then you look at native country, at tribes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Yes.
among there as well.
Yes. Just last Friday, I was down at JBLM, Joint Base Lewis McChord. They've asked me, and I've agreed to be their keynote speaker in September, which is Suicide Prevention Month. They say so many enlisted men and women who come in are really suffering from mental health issues. They tuck it away long enough to get through basic training and do what they need to do. But once they get settled, once they're out in the field, once they start resuming their activities, those mental health issues blossom back up again. So they want me to come in and speak with them and let them know that help is available. Now, in their case, a lot of them are afraid that they'll be stripped of certain duties and responsibilities. A lot of them are carrying armaments, and mental health is one of those things that you might have your armaments taken away. They're definitely afraid of that. So Fort Lewis is working hard to make sure that their service people can feel reassured that, no, it doesn't necessarily mean you'll lose your arms, but we need to get you treatment and help. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions from the audience? Robin.
I don't know if I should even say this, and forgive me, I hope it doesn't come across rude. As a mother of a suicidal Black man, I have dealt with police enforcement in that context. And I don't have the same respect that you have for law enforcement because of it.
Can you expound a little bit on that?
I called for help for my son.
Okay.
They almost caused him to die.
Excuse me, what was that? I'm sorry.
They almost caused him to die because of them.
Okay.
And because of the justice system
Mm,
I also just wanted to say, since you are running for political office, there's a lot of us who don't watch Como because they're owned by Sinclair Outlet, which is even more to the right than Fox News.
mm.
So someone like me would miss that completely. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of thoughts going through my head. I want to go back to, I have to take my social justice hat off and put my mentor program director hat on. And I work with youth who have been, all have been traumatized sexually, physically. And so this subject, and as a mom, and as someone who's lost 2 friends to suicide, it's very close to me. And so I'm trying to do all I can to be trauma informed and to educate my mentors in that way. And that's something that I'm working on to have more competent mentors who know how to deal with traumatized youth.
That's right. That's right. No, I agree. Let me talk to 2 points. The police are not always the best response to someone who is suicidal. And this is what we're working on in the city of Seattle, having a mental health professional go first and address the situation. The police are standing by, but out of sight, so the situation doesn't escalate. And in case things get dangerous or potentially life-threatening for anybody on the scene, the police are nearby. But a mental health professional really should deal with mental health issues like somebody who's suicidal.
And that's what the defunding part is. It's not taking money away from
That's right.
law enforcement. It's reallocating those funds to things like that so that we aren't putting police in the position of handling stuff they don't know how to handle. But also we can't ignore the whole racism part of it. And we're in an area that is, I'm in Bremerton, which is even whiter. So, when you have all these white law enforcement people and mental health too,
Right.
Who don't know how to deal with that.
That's right. That's exactly right. In the mental health industry overall, as a field, less than 2% of mental health professionals are professionals of color, which is one reason why we don't have enough mental health professionals of color in our communities of color. Even my behavioral health counselors were young Caucasian women who had no way to relate to what I was going through as an African-American man. They had no idea. It was frustrating for me, but I realized that at least I had somebody to pour out all my issues I was talking about. They are trained professionals, but the advice they gave back to me was ridiculous. And then one last thing, suicide by cop was one of my ways of exiting this world. I knew if I went out and wrestled with a cop, tried to take his gun, I'd be a dead man. I knew it. And now that may just be me as an African-American man thinking, but if I wrestled with an African-American cop, the result may have been the same. I don't know. But that's one of the ways out of this world I was seeking. I normally don't think that way. I mean, that's the last thing that's ever crossed my mind. But when you're in that suicidal mindset, you're not thinking correctly. You're not thinking straight on hardly anything. And I don't like to really put that out there, but we do have an issue with law enforcement. In my estimation, they need to be trained better. They need to be better prepared. As a professional athlete, we trained every single day, every day, even during the off season. Training has to be ongoing, nonstop. And you can't just train for, a weekend during the year and think that you're going to be up to speed. It doesn't work that way. So I'm with you. there's a lot of work that we can do. And if I'm mayor of Seattle, we will make sure that we do it.
Thank you.
Thank you, James. We have about 3 minutes left. I think this is such a great conversation. You know, thank you, Robin, for bringing up what you brought up around police and police actions. I know the trauma I've experienced in Chicago was related to the police 95% of the time. And I also understand where, you know, how things have changed over the years. And I think one of the issues, in addition to training, is that most officers that work in low income, mostly Black and brown communities, don't live in those communities, whether they're Black or white or any ethnicity. And so there becomes that dissonance between the persons serving and protecting the community and those from that community. So I guess that's, I don't know if that's a final question or point, but how do we generate more community trust, not just with the police? I'm talking about like many mentors don't live in the same community as their mentees.
That's right.
So it's a long-standing conversation that needs to be had. And I think we're just beginning to the beginning of it. So I don't know if you have anything to say regarding.
Well, you know, of course, I've met with the police and the police union. I've got a lot of police officer friends in the city of Seattle. I've worked out and trained with them the last 20, 30 years, most of them white fellas, I know. But I told the police and the police guild, I said, hey, you guys, you police officers need to get back into the communities. Get out of your cars. Take off your Ninja Turtle outfits. So you're looking like some superhero out here. And just put your basic uniform on without all the armor guard and everything else. Walk the neighborhoods. Get to know these kids. These kids get to know you. If anything else, bring a police in on horseback. Horses draw kids from all over the place. And you at least have a connection with the kids. You can start getting to know their names. They start to get to know you. You got to do this on a regular basis. You can't just pop in once a year and expect something to really magically come together again. It's relationship building. But you got to start somewhere. And that's by getting our police officers out of their cars, walking the beats in the neighborhoods and meeting and greeting the neighbors.
And Robin says it's so important to interview and get to know who we're allowing to be mentors. To that point, indeed, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. You have to know the people you're working with, right? That's the basis of culture responsive practices, which I've been doing, and we've been doing it at Mentor Washington and the mentoring programs that we serve over the years, and we have to keep doing that. So I want to thank you. Our time is running short. It is over. So thank you, James Donaldson, fellow Mentor Washington board member, community member, supporter, you name it. We appreciate this conversation. Thank you, everyone, for following along. We will post this video again on our website, and the next one will be April 15th, 11:30 a.m.
Cool. Thanks, everyone. All right.
Appreciate this. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Take
Thanks
care.
very much.
Thanks.
Well done.
Bye-bye.
Bye.